It's the 1st of January! Yay! It's a week until I turn 18. What the fuck? Like, I'm gonna be a grown up. That's scary. So today I am going to talk about the best books that I read this year and the worst books that I read this year. I'm going to talk about the worst books because I feel like a lot of people only talk about the best ones, and it makes it sound as if kind of you didn't read anything bad this year, and I think that's just a lie. Like, even if you read books that you think were all 5 stars, which I don't think is possible to do in a year, I think you have to write, there are some books that are better than others, and if you only focus on the good ones, that kind of erases bad literature. And there is such a thing as bad literature, there is such a thing as bad books, and there are some books that I think shouldn't have been written. I know, scary, right? So today I'm going to talk about the best and the worst books that I have read this year. I'm going to start with the best books, because I think if you just want to watch the stuff that I enjoyed, then you can, and you can watch up until the end of the best books, and you can see the book that I think is the best thing that I've read this year. And then I'm going to do the worst books that I've read. My god, there are some bad books. So let's get started with the best books. In at number 5 is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I read this over the summer, and it's so well written. It's beautiful, beautifully written, and the storyline is so unusual. Like, this is her debut novel. She's never written a book before, and you wouldn't know that from the way that it's written. It's so eloquent and it's so beautiful. If this cover were a writing style, it would be the writing style in this book, and I think that's a really impressive thing. It feels personal, and you're invested kind of immediately from the start of the book, but all the while you're aware that it's kind of otherworldly, but only just, and that you could almost be part of this world, and I think it's a fabulous book. So this is number 5. Coming in at number 4 is Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. This book, oh my god guys, this book, I have never before read a book wherein the main character, who is a girl, is fat and it's actually realistic. Like, books have fat characters, but they never talk about the issues that come with that. And in this book, oh my god, Eleanor, I want to give her a hug. It's so well written, it's so realistic, and like, it's set in the 80s, which obviously I never experienced because I was born at the back end of the 90s, but you can get a real feel for it, and it's kind of timeless in a way. It deals with issues in a really subtle way as well, like racism and kind of like, it's just beautiful, and I love it. This is my favourite Rainbow Rowell book. So this is number 4 of the year. Coming in at number 3 is The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. I have actually lent my copy of The Book Thief out, so I don't have a copy to show you. This book, guys, made me cry, and I saw the film before I read the book. So I saw the film, weeped for half an hour after the end of the film. Like, everybody else had left the cinema, and me and my mum were sat there, and I was just sobbing because it's so beautiful. And so I knew what was going to happen. I got to the end of the book and I was still sobbing for 20 minutes as I finished that book, because it's so beautifully written. The characters, like, there wasn't a single character that I didn't feel for, and that's a very impressive thing. Even the ones at the beginning of the book that I hated with a passion, by the end of the book I was like, actually, you're just doing your best, and I want to give you a hug. And it was beautiful. It's such a beautiful book. If you haven't read it, I would really, really recommend it. And if you haven't seen the film yet but have read the book, like, I think it might be one of my favourite adaptations of the year. It's so good. It's flawless. Like, obviously they cut some things, but I was so swept away by how beautiful it was, and it's beautiful. So yeah, Number 3 is The Book Thief. So coming in at number 2 is Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell. I read this a couple months ago and I did a book talk about it, a review. This is my first Orwell book and it's a kind of semi-autobiographical section of his life while he was in Catalonia during the Spanish Civil War Revolution thing. It's so good. It's so, like, so much of this was just like reaffirming all of my just all of my feelings about how the world should work, like how people should function together. And it's awful that this had to happen, but his writing about it makes you think about things so well. And just George Orwell, guys, just George Orwell. So I'm gonna read more of his stuff next year, this year, 2015, whenever that is. But I'm definitely gonna read some more of his stuff. I do, however, really dislike this cover. I really, really don't like it. I think it looks horribly ugly, and I don't understand why would you make a cover look like this? It's hideous. Book 1 is The Bicentennial Man. And I realise this isn't a book in and of itself, it's just a short story, but it's the best thing I read all year. It's beautiful, it's flawless. I've never read any Isaac Asimov before, and my mum kind of was like, you need to read this, it'll only take you an hour, go and sit, read this book, just do it. And usually I kind of like, I dismiss what my mum says about reading books and like, I'll get to it eventually, but it'll take me a while. Like, I still haven't read The Handmaid's Tale, but I read this book. I just sat and I read it, and it made me cry. Like, I hate short stories. I think it's really difficult to write them, and it's very, very rare to find someone who can write a short story well. And to be able to write a short story well enough that will make me cry is incredibly impressive. And it's flawless in every way. Like, it's so good, and I really wish the adaptation was better because it's awful. They make it about a love interest, and that's so not the point. But just the whole story was beautiful. Like, the examination of humanity while actually not examining humanity is beautiful. Like, oh, guys, if you haven't already, go and read The Bicentennial Man. It's only like 60 pages long. Go now. It's gorgeous. So, like I said, those are the top 5 books that I read during 2014. I'm now going to move on to the worst 5 books that I read this year. And my god, are they some shit books. Coming in at number 5, we have Allegiant by Veronica Roth. I liked Divergent. I really, really liked Divergent. I coped with Insurgent because let's face it, Insurgent was not as good as Divergent, and it didn't really answer any of your questions, and it just made you ask more, and some stuff didn't really make sense. And we thought, it's fine, the third book will come and it'll explain everything and we'll understand. And then I read it. Such bullshit. Such bullshit. Like, from the first chapter, I knew who was going to live and who was going to die in this book. Because it's so obvious. It's so obvious. I really hate the trope that is used in this book. I really hate it. It really irritates me in YA fiction, and I can't stand it, and I thought this author was better than that because it's a shitty trope. It's weak, and it's really kind of... the messages behind it are awful. Like, no. Just no. It didn't answer my questions, and the questions that it did answer answered in a really shitty and unbelievable way, and I still don't understand why people did what they did. Why was Caleb, why did he betray them? Why? Does anyone know? No? Does anyone? Exactly. Nothing is answered, and it's just like, it's 500 pages of absolute shit. None of my questions were answered. It was awful. If you want a more in-depth reason of why this book was awful, you should go and watch Lainey Reads. She has a drunken review of this book and it's flawless. Like, she explains everything beautifully, especially for someone who's not sober. Coming in at number 4 for the worst books I read this year is The Maze Runner by James Dashner. This was just bad. Like, it made no sense. Characters did things purely for the sake of doing them. Like, they had absolutely no motivation. It just wasn't realistic. Like, characters withheld information, not for any reason at all, other than, I'm a character in a book, and if I tell you everything right away, it'll mean the book will have to be like 200 pages shorter. So I'm not going to tell you anything, even though I would tell you, were I a real person and were this a real situation. And it was just bullshit. So I really didn't enjoy this. The characters frustrated me no end, and I'm going to read the rest of the series because I feel a duty to read the rest of the series because I find it really difficult to like leave a story alone. But this could have been done so much better. Book 3 for the worst book was The Future of Us by Jay Asher and Caroline Mackler. I had really high hopes for this book because I really like Jay Asher. His book 13 Reasons Why I think is really beautiful and really poetic about kind of the struggles that happen in kind of teen life, especially if you're someone with depression and especially if you've got a lot of shit happening in your life, and I think it's a really beautiful book. This one, on the other hand, was absolute crap. 2 kids find Facebook in the future and meddle continuously with their future, in the end getting together, which you knew they would from the beginning of the book, and like, they don't care about anybody else. It makes no sense. Why is there Facebook on their computer? Why? I don't care about their romance. I want to know about the science fiction future bit. Like, it was just so disappointing. It was really cliched. It was terribly, like, they were so up themselves. It was disgusting. So this was awful. Into the last 2, and if you can guess these ones, I wouldn't be surprised because I've made videos about both of them and about how much I hate these books. But let's talk about them for a little bit anyway. Book 2 for the worst book of the year goes to Black Ice by Becca Fitzpatrick. This book, guys, I would not have read this book if it weren't for Booksplosion. Like, this would never have been something I picked up. It would never have been something that I thought, oh, that sounds intriguing. Like, even the blurb is creepy. Like, the whole book hinges on badly written Stockholm Syndrome. Like, Stockholm Syndrome can be written well. I've read books with really well written Stockholm Syndrome that make you, as the reader, doubt whether or not it's Stockholm Syndrome and whether or not it's just love. And they can be done really well. This was not. This was awful. It made no sense. The protagonist was an idiot. All of the side characters were stupid. I felt so angry so much of the time reading this book because none of it was believable, and all the time the main character was so going on about, oh, aren't I special? Aren't I amazing? Aren't I brilliant? Because I'm going to prove to my ex-boyfriend that I can handle myself by going to the mountains. Aren't I? Oh, look at me. Woe is me. It's just shut up. Just shut the fuck up. No one cares. You're an idiot. No one... Why is my answer, because this is it's just shit. It's just shit. Lastly, this is the worst book I read all year, and I read it in the spring. And I was really disappointed by this book because it has an interesting premise, and I thought it was going to be interesting, that's why I bought it. And instead, it's 400 pages of absolute drivel. Like, I've never read anything as completely horrific, really. It was awful. It was absolutely awful, and it's Hate List by Jennifer Brown. This book was so bad. The characters were not believable. There was a continuous kind of, you're supposed to feel sorry for the protagonist, when actually what I wanted to do was shake her and just say, what the fuck are you doing? You could stand up for yourself here, or here, or here, or just say something. Just any point in 400 pages where you could say that you didn't know your boyfriend had a gun, because it's the truth. Like, none of the characters are believable. Her dad, who is a lawyer, leaves her in a hospital room alone with a policeman. That wouldn't happen. You would never, ever, ever let your child talk to a policeman on their own. You just wouldn't do it. And if you're a lawyer, you especially wouldn't do it, because she should have a lawyer present at all times. Her parents were awful. They blamed her for their splitting up, despite the fact that one of them had been having an affair for 5 years. Like, that's not her fault. Her friends buggered off for literally no reason, and she started hanging out with someone who bullied her, and yet the bully was just suddenly miraculously nice, never apologised for bullying her. We never learn why she was bullied, but she constantly goes on about how hard her life is, and I hated everyone in this book. They were awful characters. It was awfully written. The whole plot was just one chapter after another of kind of, isn't my life difficult? Isn't my life hard? But I'm not going to do anything about it. And it was awful. Awful book. And then on top of that, there's like, the Goodreads review is like 4 stars or something. This is an awful book. I don't understand how this got a high rating, because it's just crap. It's 400 pages of crap. So don't read this book unless you want to have a book that you absolutely hate, in which case read this, because it's complete shit. Those are the top 5 books that I thought were complete crap, and the top 5 books that I thought were brilliant. Tell me what your favourite books and like least favourite books of the year were, and I will see you guys next time in another video. Bye!